Hey everybody, welcome to WagerTalk Football Podcast for this weekend, Week 15 in the NFL. We got a lot of games to break down today. Dave Cokin and I in studio. Mark Seidel at the controls. We're going to be talking about 5 football games that we're going to break down from a Vegas perspective, along with best bets a little bit later in the show. Marco D'Angelo, we gave him the night off. He's down at T-Mobile checking out his hometown Penguins, taking on the Vegas Golden Knights. And Matt Holt, good news with Matt. He'll be back next week as we bring the band back together for the WagerTalk podcast. We still kick things off by going behind the counter with a look at the betting handle in this week's NFL. Earlier today on Thursday, Dave Cokin and I spoke with CGT's Jason Simbal, ESPN's The Las Vegas Sports Line. We got the betting handle for this week's card.
It is Jason Simbal from CG Technology joining us right now on the Fleming's Hotline. What's going on, Jason? How are you?
Just picturing Scott stuffing his face with funnel cakes. That's what I'm doing right now.
Well, apparently it wasn't plural last night, so the under was a big winner.
Sharps were on the under, Jason. You know, Matt set that number too high. Should have checked with you, man.
Yeah, easy win on the under. I should have bet it.
I wonder if the under is the way to play tonight. I don't know. I think Fleury's going to have a good game. And this, we'll bring this up first before we go to the NFL betting report. I'm hearing that this is, especially by hockey standards, this is a really high-volume game with the Penguins in town to face the Golden Knights, and a lot of bettors getting involved with this one.
It is. In fact, this is, could be on pace to be our highest hockey game of the season. The Las Vegas fans have been on the Golden Knights so far early on. We actually opened this game minus 115. Golden Knights minus 115. They're up to minus 120.
Wow.
Back down to minus 115 now. What I find very funny about this is all of the local books here in town are kind of in that minus 115, minus 120 range. I see minus 110 as well. But if you look at some of the books that aren't located in Las Vegas, totally different prices. Some of them are at like minus 108, and there's even some that have the Pens as the favorite.
Well, the local betting market is speaking volumes about what they think is going to happen tonight. And I got to tell you, I didn't play it, but I think I agree more with the locals. I think the Knights are going to be really fired up for this game, and we'll talk more about it later, but there's that Vegas flu thing that comes into play. Again, we'll talk more about that in our marquee matchup. We are going to focus this conversation on the National Football League, obviously, because the action begins tonight. It's not the biggest game of the weekend, to be sure, but you know what? These Thursday night games between fairly evenly matched teams, and in this case, a late season game where it'll be the last time in the spotlight for these two squads this year. I think the Broncos and Colts put forth a good effort tonight.
Yeah, you figure that both these teams are trying to they're trying to win games. We saw that last week, especially out of the Broncos. So far, the fans have been all over the Broncos here. Really not a lot of sharp action on this game at all, but it's been all fans betting the Broncos coming off that big win, the blowout win they had against the Jets last week. Number open 2 is all the way up to 2.5 minus 120, about 2 times more tickets and money on Broncos. And like I said before, it's fans just driving up that price.
It's interesting. Denver has not looked like they've been trying to win on the road since last season, Jason. 0-8. Straight up and against the spread, including 0-6 this year on the road. And the thing is, they average under 13 points per game in those 8 losses. That's pretty ugly. Sunday game, Eagles and Giants.
Oh, wait a minute. You left out the Saturday games.
Oh, Saturday night. We've got Saturday night.
Yes, we've got a doubleheader on Saturday.
What am I doing?
I don't know.
Throw the first one out there.
It's a funnel cake hangover.
That's right. It's the funnel cake hangover. It's a good thing I played under.
It's the Bears and Lions.
That's right.
The Bears and Lions kick off the Saturday doubleheader, and then the Chargers and Chiefs. After that, let's talk first about the Bears and Lions. Good performance by Chicago last week, but against a team that I think it's fair to say mailed it in. And as for the Lions, playoff chances still exist, but they're kind of looking bleak.
Slim playoff chances for the Lions. They obviously need to win out to have a shot this game, starting it with this one. Pretty big move towards the Bears here, and it's been pretty sharp action. Open Lions minus 6.5. Number all the way down to 4.5. We had sharp bets. Take +6 with Chicago and take +5.5 with Chicago. Very few bets on the Lions. People really impressed with how the Bears are kind of ending their season here, and not a lot of love for Detroit. I wouldn't be shocked if this even goes down a little further.
Chargers at KC, a big battle. Didn't forget that one on Saturday night. Big battle in the AFC West between these two teams. and obviously playing for the top spot in the AFC West. I've seen this number basically around pick 'em, Jason, for the most part. What are you guys getting on this handle?
Yeah, pretty fun game, actually. Chargers opened as a 1-point favorite, and we actually were at Chargers minus 1.5 for a little bit, but we took some pretty sharp action from some respected players on Kansas City plus 1.5, and the Kansas City money came in since then, which is why the number's back down to pick. So certainly pretty good two-way action on this game for sure, and for a Saturday night, this is actually a pretty fun game.
Let's go to Sunday, and this is an interesting matchup because obviously it's the first game post Carson Wentz for the Philadelphia Eagles. Let's talk about where the number is and how much was the adjustment for the Wentz injury and with Nick Foles replacing him.
Yeah, we opened this game Eagles -8. It's Eagles -7.5 now. Some early Giants money, but we opened this game obviously with the knowledge that that Wentz was going to be more than likely missing the game because the ACL rumors had been swirling since, later in the afternoon on Sunday. So, I would imagine that this game would, figure this game to open somewhere, north of 10, but the adjustment is not as big as Wentz to Foles as you might think, and most of that is based on the opponent, right? The Giants aren't moving the ball against anybody. Doesn't matter who the quarterback is on the other side. So, it's more of an indictment on the Giants' offense that this game, without what would most people be considered the MVP of the league, is still north of a touchdown. But it's been pretty heavy Giants action so far,
really?
Like I said.
Aaron Rodgers coming back this week for the Green Bay Packers. They're at Carolina, and the one thing you got to say about Brett Hundley and the Green Bay coaching staff is I thought they made improvements by huge leaps and bounds with Brett Hundley after getting thrown into the mix in that game several weeks ago when Rodgers got knocked out early in the contest. Here's the thing, man. So you're looking at a team that we found out that probably with Brett Hundley at this point of his career, if he started a season, there's a good shot this team's 8-8 by the end of the year with Brett Hundley at this point. So maybe not as big of a drop-off from Aaron Rodgers to Hundley, so you don't have to make as big of an adjustment coming back the other way on Aaron Rodgers. I did see at CGT Carolina as high as 6.5 early this week before it was announced that Rodgers would play. Where are you guys at now?
Yeah, we're at 3 now, and what's actually 2.5 currently as we speak. And what's funny about this game is we opened Panthers -3 because the assumption was Rodgers is eligible to play this week, and he's definitely going to. But the rumors started circulating about maybe he's not quite ready, and because of that, the move went all the way to 6.5. A lot of people took the game down. We left it up, tried to give people a chance to get their bets in, and the number went all the way as high as 6.5. And we did take some sharp bets on the Packers, plus 6.5 and plus 6, because they figured Rodgers is indeed playing. And pretty much ever since then, it's drifted back down. The line was at 3 the majority of the week. Just went to Panthers -2.5 now. So I really think we're going to be needing Carolina in this game. People love betting Aaron Rodgers here in his return.
Now here's a game that I think is tough to put a good number on because the situations are clear. The Bengals have pretty much tossed it in for the season. They made their big effort against Pittsburgh, failed. Complete no-show last week. Situationally, this is a big game for Minnesota. But how high can you make the number? I mean, that's you got to try and come up with a number where you won't get overloaded with action on the Vikings. Did you do so, or is it going to be all Vikings money anyway?
Pretty much going to be all Vikings money anyway, I think. I mean, we've had two-way action so far in terms of the money because some of the bigger bets from some of the sharp folks do like taking the big dog, plus the hook 10.5. But the ticket count has been massively in favor of the Vikings. 5-1 tickets on the Vikings, all small bets. I would be very, very surprised if us needing the Bengals wasn't one of the bigger decisions of the day.
Kind of uncharted waters for Minnesota. I was looking back because Mike Zimmer has been such a bankroll builder for bettors since he's been in Minnesota. This is just the second time in 3 years they've been a favorite of more than 7. The other time was earlier this year. They came through 33-16 against those Cleveland Browns. Dolphins at the Bills. Tyrod Taylor, last I saw, was upgraded to probable. Hard to imagine Miami doesn't have some sort of letdown, Jason.
Yeah, we're working under the assumption that Tyrod Taylor is going to be a go. Miami coming off the huge emotional win on a short week as well, traveling to Buffalo, where who knows what the weather is going to be like. I saw it was snowing in New York City earlier today, so I think this is a pretty good spot for the Bills. But surprisingly, we took a pretty sharp bet on the Dolphins right away. And actually on Dolphins' money line at about like plus 155. So, we'll see what happens. This game hasn't been up for very long because of the quarterback question mark, though.
This just in, the Houston Texans are not a good football team, not this year. And look at the Jaguars. I can't, I don't know when the last time they were favored by this much was. It's got to be a while ago.
If there's any team that you figure the Jaguars should be able to crush, it's this Houston team that can't protect the quarterback and has a player who throws a lot of interceptions. The Jaguars' defense is so good against the pass. They are an 11-point favorite, and the number quickly went to 11.5, but some Texans bets plus 11.5 brought the number back down to 11. This is going to be another one of these teams that's a double-digit favorite that you really don't generally see as a double-digit favorite, so it'll be interesting to see if the public is going to be on Jacksonville just like they are Minnesota.
Remember a couple of weeks ago, they were laying 10 and they won by 20 against Indy. So This is actually the second time in recent weeks that they've actually been laying double digits, and they came through the first time Jacksonville. Jets at New Orleans, Saints laying 15.5, total 47. Saints in that Falcon sandwich. They lost last week to Atlanta, and they host Atlanta next Sunday. So buyer beware laying all those points. A 1-point win obviously means as much to this team as does a 17-point win.
It does, and 15 was the opener, up to 15.5 now. So this is the biggest spread of the week. Obviously, big action on the Saints right away. A little bit of buyback on the Jets, but not nearly enough to offset it. But what was funny is we did take a $300 bet on the Jets money line at 10-1. So maybe if you want to have some fun, maybe the Jets can hang, and you can kind of hit instead of betting a parlay, bet the Jets money line.
Not a lot on the line as far as this next game is concerned, but it could be a fun game to watch as the Arizona Cardinals off a win in which they didn't score any touchdowns, but they looked like the better football team last week at home against Tennessee. They go on the road now to face a Redskins team that got hammered last week. What's that doing to the betting in this game?
Yeah, this has been a pretty quiet game. I think that, other than the game tonight, this is really the only game where it doesn't really matter for either of the teams. So it's just kind of been a very, very slow game. The number's been 4.5 all week. Haven't really needed to move it because very little action. They have bet the under, however. That's down to 42.5.
All right, my Nancy Reagan game of the week. And I'm going to tell you what I'm referring to here.
I can't wait to hear why.
Oh, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about as soon as I say it, because I say it every week. Just say no. I like the Cleveland Browns this week. I will not play the Cleveland Browns. Nancy Reagan, just say no. Baltimore off 3 straight wins, followed by that tough 39-38 loss to the Steelers. Now on the road against these 0-13 Browns. Baltimore laying 7. Just say no, Jason. If I like Cleveland, I pass the game.
Well, this is Groundhog Day all over again because here we are, and again, they've bet the Cleveland Browns. Number was 7.5. Now it's 7. I feel like, a broken record, but that's what we're at here. So if the game started today, we would need the Baltimore Ravens. So it's very interesting. Obviously, that's going to change when the public weighs in, but those sharp guys are back on the Browns again.
Here we go. This is the big one on Sunday. I thought this would be a flex game to Sunday night, but, I'll enjoy it whenever it's on. And it is the biggest game of the year in the NFL to date because the number 1 seed in the AFC will likely be decided in this contest. The New England Patriots on the road against the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, certainly a fun game. This is the most bet game of the week. There's really a lot of good games this week, but this one by far has the most bets on it. Really, really good two-way action here so far. Very happy with it. Opener was 3, Patriots -3 in Pittsburgh, and pretty good two-way action at 3 until we took a pretty respected bet on the Steelers +3. We moved it down to 2.5, and as soon as we went to 2.5, there were like 10 or 12 Patriot bets right in a row. Boom, boom, boom. Just betting New England minus the 2.5, and then we went back to 3, and again, it's been pretty good two-way action at the 3. So right now the number's 3, and I think we might be standing pat on the 3 for the majority of the time here. But as you said, Dave, what a tremendous game.
Patriots at Pittsburgh. I thought by the end of the week, maybe it still will be that way. This will be the biggest handle on the card because everybody bets Pittsburgh, everybody bets New England as far as their games are concerned. Patriots laying 3 on the road. I got to ask you as an odds maker, what means more to you behind the counter setting the numbers? Pro New England and that they're off the flat spot and ugly game against Miami, or con New England, the fact they are playing the 3rd straight road game, which has been a tough spot for NFL teams, including the Minnesota Vikings just last week.
It really is tricky because, as we know, Tom Brady and Bill Belichick have had tremendous success against Pittsburgh, historically. And I just, to me, I see it every year. Brady's finished, the Patriots are done. It always happens. Every year there's one game where they just look terrible, and it never ends up mattering. So until it happens for a long period of time, I always got to go with the Pats.
Yeah, and besides which, even though it's their 3rd straight road game, they had last week off.
How's the handle, by the way?
They didn't even show up for that.
Yeah, that's true.
They didn't show up for the game.
That's a great point. They barely even, even on 4th and inches, Bill Belichick didn't show up because that's almost an automatic. Tom Brady sneaks it over the top if it's 4th and inches, if it's, 4th and inches at the goal line, no matter where it is on the field, and they didn't do that. Helped out the underbettors, by the way.
Scott, guys, I don't even know how much they prepped for the game.
Yeah. What is the handle on this game, by the way, so far, Jason?
Really, really good. It's by far the most tickets, and it's also the most handle. Not surprising. This is clearly the best game of the season so far, I would say.
Let's go to the Tennessee-San Francisco matchup because we've had a change in favorites from where it opened, and I'm not surprised by this. The line that is posted last week had Tennessee the favorite. Not anymore. The 49ers are now the favorite, and it's easy to see why. The Titans are 8-5. They're a playoff contender, but nobody really believes in them at this point. And Jimmy Garoppolo is making the San Francisco 49ers a different football team.
Yeah, I don't have any stats on this, but I can't ever imagine that a 3-10 team was ever a favorite over an 8-5 team in the past. But that's where we are now, and not only are the Niners, the 3-10 team, the favorite, they're the public side as well. 3 times more tickets have been bet on the 49ers, so people are really backing the Jimmy Garoppolo bandwagon so far.
Sunday Night Football, this ought to be a big handle because it is the Oakland Raiders and the Dallas Cowboys, no matter what the records are. But both teams, they're still in the mix. Neither can afford a loss. What are you seeing on this one?
Yeah, definitely neither can afford the loss. I actually think, kind of based on the play in this one, that this might end up being one of our biggest games of the day, where we're going to be needing the Oakland Raiders, soon to be Las Vegas Raiders. Sharp bets laying 2.5 with the Cowboys, which is why the number's up to 3 now. But the ticket count is all over Dallas. 3 times more tickets on Dallas. And like I said, usually there's a lot of parlays that are heading to the favorite on Sunday night. So I really think that we're going to be big Raiders fans come Sunday.
And finally, Monday night, and I'll hazard a guess that because it's a Monday night standalone game, the side you'll need more than any other this week, if you're a bookmaker, is the Tampa Bay Bucks, because the action on the Atlanta Falcons is going to be big-time heavy.
Oh, yeah, for sure. The Monday night games generally are favorite and over, and that's really no different so far already here as we talk Thursday afternoon. They're betting the Falcons. Number went from 6 to 6.5, and they're betting the over. That number is 48.5 now. So Bucks and under is going to be one of our biggest needs of the week, and hopefully we can come through with that one, because if not, it'll be an ugly end to the weekend for the books.
That's another buyer beware, because the other half of that sandwich situation, the Falcons are in a Saints sandwich, And last week, got them next week.
Listen, for what it's worth, and I'm not saying this is a reason to bet Tampa Bay, just consider it. This will be their Super Bowl.
Sure.
This is the last chance they've got to impress somebody, including themselves, against the divisional rival. We'll see. Hey, it's going to be a fun weekend. Lots of action in town. Bowl games, NFL, NBA, college basketball. You can sit in the sports book and enjoy the games. That's a great place to do it. But if you can't do that, there's an easy way to be in action.
Yeah, and in fact, this is funny because I get to, hype up hockey for the first time in the betting app. The Knights have a homestand here during the Christmas break. I think they play the Saturday before Christmas, and they've got 2 games after tonight also leading up to Christmas. So, if you want to hang out with your family but still get the bets in, you got to sign up for an app. So, might as well do that and try to. Christmas Eve is a Sunday as well, so there's a ton of NFL games, so you got to get the app so you don't get screamed at by your wife and kids.
Make sure to follow Jason Simbal on Twitter @JSimbal. Thanks, Jason. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, guys.
That was Jason Simbal of CGT Sportsbooks earlier on Thursday with Week 15 betting information in the NFL. We're going to take a quick timeout. When we come back, we'll break down 5 football games for the weekend. Stick around. We are Wager Talk.
It's Manic Monday, and that means every pick at WagerTalk.com is just $9. Get a play in any sport valued at up to $30 for just $9 each and every Monday at WagerTalk.com.
Welcome back to Wager Talk Podcast, Week 15 of the NFL. We got 4 games we're going to talk about in pro football in just a moment. Best bet still to come. But I want to kick things off. We got opening day action in the Bowls on Saturday, the game that is kind of intriguing. Oregon and Boise State. That is the Las Vegas Bowl. And as we suspected, and it has been confirmed now, that their star running back, Royce Freeman, is going to not play in this game, Dave. He's looking to save himself for the NFL draft. I can't say that I blame him.
Nope.
I think he's the first of several this year.
Yeah, it makes all the sense in the world for Freeman not to play. I would also recommend the same thing to guys like Barkley and
Sure.
Guys along that line. And we're not just talking about skill position players, But if you're a potential first-day draft pick, unless you have something to really gain from these minor bowls in terms of moving up the ladder, you're better off not playing. Obviously, the injury risk, and in some cases, you might be facing a team that's not going to bring out the best of you in you, and you can actually downgrade yourself. That's why I mentioned Barkley from Penn State. Washington's maybe not a great team this year. They're good. But the one thing they do extremely well is defend the run. And Barkley is very capable of going out there and having a 50-yard rushing game against Washington on 15 carries. I don't want that on my resume to be the last college game I play. To me, if I'm Barkley, I'm sitting out. What's the game mean to Penn State? It's not a playoff game. Obviously, for the real big games, different story entirely.
The playoff games, yeah.
But anything that would be classified as a less than big-time bowl, and sorry, no offense to Washington and Penn State, but I don't think it's a big-time bowl. If I'm a potential first-day draft pick, I'm advising that guy not to play.
Well, with Saquon Barkley, I mean, maybe he comes out and runs for $150. Who knows? That would be,
could be
not likely to happen. It could happen, but I don't think that adds to his, to the allure of drafting Saquon Barkley, like coming out and running for 40 or 50 yards on 15 or 18 carries could negatively affect them. And then there's always the chance of suffering an injury that changes everything when it comes to NFL draft day. So it's too much risk and no reward, really.
No, and it really does confuse the analysis as far as this Oregon-Boise State game is concerned, because Freeman really is a valuable player. The threat of a really good Oregon running game means more wide-open passing opportunities now that Herbert's back on the field. They're clearly a much better offensive team than they were when he wasn't. The flip side of this is it's more Boise State's home game. They're going to have very good representation here, which was expected. I think they might be a little more excited about this. Then you've got the Mario Cristobal situation, as he is the new head coach for Oregon, and he will be their head coach in this game because he was the offensive coordinator.
And the players are happy about that, by the way.
Yeah, they are. To me, there's a lot of different things to read here. The one thing that does stand out, and again, how much does Freeman impact this? The rushing stats really good on Oregon. That's their game. And I have a tendency to go with teams that do extremely well, both running the ball and defending the run. So advantage Oregon in that case, but not enough for me to play the game, and really not enough to make a good judgment at knowing what the Freeman absence is going to do to them.
The tough news was Freeman, and we knew this. I mean, we talked about it earlier this week on
and we
the
both
Las Vegas
said
Sports Line.
We assumed correctly he's not going to play.
Right. Listed as questionable this late. We also assumed that they probably knew about it several days ago, that he wasn't going to play. The good news for Oregon, it doesn't outweigh the news of losing Royce Freeman for this game, but Tony Brooks-James, one of the running backs, is going to play. It looks like he's been upgraded to probable, and then they do have Kenai Benoit. So those two running backs can kind of make up for Royce Freeman if the team's focused. You mentioned the quarterback situation with Justin Herbert. When he's at quarterback for Oregon, 50 points per game. When he's not quarterback for Oregon, 15 points per game. That is a ridiculous dichotomy. As you mentioned, Mario Cristobal, they want him as the head coach, so they're all going to be happy about that. Here's the difference between, we've talked about on our radio show, another team that's playing from the Mountain West on Saturday, Colorado State playing in New Mexico in the Albuquerque Bowl, and there's not much interest from the Colorado State fans, which means the team might not be that interested also playing in a site they see every other year in the Mountain West Conference, New Mexico. But there is excitement for Boise State, obviously, coming to Las Vegas. Different venue, by all means, and they're going to be excited to be here again. As you mentioned, don't know if Oregon will be. They're playing for bigger. I don't want to insult the Las Vegas Bowl. It's a great game. Everybody around it does a great job. But the Oregon Ducks are playing for bigger and better things than the Las Vegas Bowl on opening bowl day of the bowl season. I think that's tough to get motivated.
I do, too, and we've seen – and it doesn't guarantee it's going to happen in this game, but we've seen Pac-12 teams come in here really flat.
Yep. So
they just don't get excited about. They're more excited about the fact that they're here, having fun in Las Vegas, than they are about the football game.
Yeah, lean for me on the underdog here. I lean towards Boise State. A lot of intangibles that you brought up that's tough to judge, which makes it a non-play. By the way, I do have a play on opening day at WagerTalk.com. It's not this game.
No, I don't know if I will or not, because I'll tell you, there's one side that I do like on Saturday, and I'm probably going to end up playing them. They do have injury issues, but at least they've had time for some of the guys to heal up some. So,
and I know
I haven't posted it yet, but I think you probably know what side it is. And if I do decide to go with it, it'll be at WagerTalk.com.
And I'm not on that game yet. It's another game that I'm on, but I may join you on that game you're talking about.
I'm leaning toward playing it.
There you go. So you're going to have at least one game between the two of us, possibly three. Well, 2 games, but 3 packages up at WagerTalk.com for opening day in the Bulls. Saturday night, we also have some NFL action. The second game, the late game on Saturday night in the NFL is the big one in the AFC West. The Chargers at Arrowhead to take on the Kansas City Chiefs. The game, pick 'em for the most part, totals 46. And, weather's supposed to be kind of cold. They're talking about, I saw a forecast Thursday morning of, 20, 25 mile an hour winds. And this one's for top spot in the AFC West, Dave.
It's a huge football game, and there's no question about which team is coming in hotter, and that's the L.A. Chargers. They started 0-4, and look where they are now. Yep. This team is really, and they could have won 3 of those 4 games that they lost. In fact, one of them, I think they kind of got robbed at New England, to be honest with you, with some really shaky officiating, which went against them. But the Chiefs did finally get rid of that monkey on their back last week. That was a very important win for them. And they played well against the Raiders. I don't think the final score even indicated how dominant they were in that game. The Raiders couldn't even make a first down for a good portion of the game. But one game doesn't equal 7, roughly. I think the Chargers are in better form right now. I have not made this a play yet, and I don't think I will. But the side I would look at would be the Chargers. They're the better football team right now, and they're playing with a lot of confidence under Anthony Lynn. I think they've shaken that ugly tendency that they had throughout last season and the early part of this season to give away games through some weird fashion in the fourth quarter on a regular basis. And in fact, they've started winning games late. They're just a different football team now.
It was almost not quite as simple as this, but a big factor, their place kicker, who was Koo, remember the place kicker who he was costing them early in the season, and they got rid of him, and things have been a little bit better. That was one actual big part of their struggles early in the season. I'm just glad that Kansas City came back to the middle a little bit, and the Chargers rose after the 4-game losing streak to start the season. I was beginning to scratch my head because back in August in the preview that we did, I was asked basically, who do you think is going to win the AFC West? And I said, I think the Chargers have a great shot to shock a few people. I think they win at least 9 games. My biggest play over under wins total was Kansas City under 9. So they're 5-0. My under's looking horrible. The Chargers are 0-4. My prediction of them being the best sleeper in football to win a division was looking pretty bad. I don't know if I'm going to get there with Kansas City. I will certainly take a push. They've got to win a couple more games just to get the push there, and so I'm hoping to at least get my money back after going against a 5-0 start. Packers and Panthers down in Carolina. The Panthers down to 2.5 at home over Green Bay. Totals 47, and as Jason Simbal said earlier, CGT Books had Carolina as high as 6.5 when it looked like Rodgers might not play. The Sharps chimed in on +6 and +6.5, Dave.
Yeah, they sure did. And look, it makes a huge difference to be having Aaron Rodgers back on the field. I know that Hundley played much better in his last few games, but still, the confidence level for the Packers has to be off the charts right now. Carolina, however, is going to get this is going to be a pros versus Joes game.
Sure.
The public is going to be on the dog in this game, which is the Packers. The numbers guys, and I'm not calling them the pros because they're the numbers guys, okay? Right. But they do impact the line, and they're going to bet Carolina. I don't know which side. I honestly don't know what to do with this game because is Rodgers going to show a little ring rust? Is Newton going to play like he did last week? And we know Cam Newton can be.
He's only got 1 pick in his last 5 games.
He can be erratic. Yep, he can be erratic, but I'm telling you, he can also make plays that no other quarterback in the league can make, and he was making them last weekend. And he was fantastic last week against Minnesota. That 60-yard run that set up a touchdown was just that was a Cam Newton special. No other quarterback in the league can make that play. And I think the Panthers. Here's what I'm stumbling all over the place because I'm looking to kind of just give out something sharp in this game. To me, and I'm not an over and under player, so take this with a grain of salt. I've played very few totals. But with Newton on a bit of a roll right now, and Rodgers back on the field, it's going to open up the Green Bay offense more than we've seen in the past few weeks because they did run a pretty conservative playbook with Hundley. I think you got a shot at an over here. I think this could be a high-scoring game.
Totals 47. Green Bay secondary is a mess with injuries all season long. And good news for Carolina fans, by the way, Khalil Mack, Looks like he's going to be able to play now up front at center, and that just makes Cam Newton all that more dangerous because he doesn't have to worry so much about the blocking up front when Mack, one of the best centers, is on the field. He got the okay to go. I agree with you there. I think an over might be the way to go here. And again, that total sitting at 47. The Rams are at Seattle. This one open pick 'em, but Seattle steamed up to 2.5. The total 47.5. The one weakness for the Rams, well, it kind of raised its ugly head last week. Good for me. I had Philly. They don't play great run defense. They got shelled by the Philadelphia ground game.
But can Seattle run on them?
It's up to Russell Wilson.
Yeah. Here's the thing and I really do think this is a factor in this game. Russell Wilson played poorly last week. Mm-hmm. He made some stupid throws, got picked 3 times for only the 3rd time in his career. Really good players have a tendency to bounce back off bad performances, and I suspect Wilson in a much more important game to the Seahawks. Let's face it, that game last week really didn't mean that much to Seattle. This is the game that matters. If they win this game, they get the tiebreaker locked up against the Rams because they won the earlier game, and that was a fortunate win for them. The Todd Gurley screw-up that cost the Rams might have cost them the football game. The Seahawks are in great position to win the division if they win this game. And as much as I think the Rams are dramatically improved, I think they've got McVay's a Coach of the Year candidate. Goff is the most improved player in the league. Seattle's way more used to these big games at the end of the season. And that experience factor to me on the coaching staff and on the playing field, even with all the injuries that Seattle has, I think that might be the difference in this game.
And I was just going to say we're kind of thinking the same way here because I'm not talking just about the age of McVay or the fact that Goff's only been in the league for a couple of years. It's that lack of experience in huge, big, important games that could cost the Rams here and be a disadvantage. Do you see any, besides that fact of inexperience in big games, and watching that the Rams have lost 2 of the last 4 outright after the big start, the fact that they are getting shelled by good running games, is there any more chinks in the armor than just that you're seeing with the Rams?
I think that's the major one, and that I don't know how much that plays into this because again, it's not really a good running game for Seattle. It's just Wilson. They're not facing a dynamic running backfield here, but it's something they've got to tighten up because it's just like we talk about this in college football all the time, and it's still very much the same in the NFL. If you can't stop the run, you're going to lose a lot of football games. It's that simple. The other team's going to be on the field too much. They're going to wear out your defense, and clock control and yards control win football games.
Sure.
I don't think it's going to be a play for me because I do have a lot of respect for the Rams, and there are some of these off the field issues and maybe behavioral on the field issues for Seattle.
More stuff this week.
Troubling me a little bit. I know Carroll's very much a player's coach, but it almost seems as though right now maybe they need more of a, and I'm not suggesting by any means they should replace Carroll. I think he'll make the riverboat gambler gaffe at times, but he's still on balance a heck of a good football coach. But right now I think that team needs a kick in the ass, and I'm not, from a discipline standpoint, I'm not sure Carroll is the guy to deliver that.
Yeah, more off-field stuff going on this week. It's something you got to put into the handicap of the game when they play, unfortunately, but that's the case. Listen, Jason told us in the opening segment that the Rams and Seahawks were the biggest bet game money-wise so far this week. The biggest bet game ticket-wise so far this week is, to me, the game of the week.
Yeah.
The Patriots and the Steelers. Patriots laying 3 at the Berg. And Dave, Brady, the last 7 games against Pittsburgh, for whatever reason, he lights this defense up. He can't play against Miami. 22 touchdown passes, not a single interception his last 7 against the Pittsburgh Steelers. They whipped Pittsburgh 36-17 last January. He's going to get Gronk back this week after the suspension last week. That helps the entire passing game, including Brandon Cooks, who struggled without having Gronk to take some attention away from him last week.
Here's the thing on New England, and I know we're gonna talk about this because it's a big factor in the game. It is their 3rd straight road game. Mm-hmm. And if you look at teams in that scheduling dynamic this year, they have not done well. But did the Patriots put anything into that game last week?
Looked like
that
was
a completely flat performance, zero emotion. I mean, it almost looked like they treated it like a bye week of sorts. It just wasn't that. It wasn't a particularly important football game. They went through
the motions, didn't they? It seemed like that's what it felt like, at least.
Yeah, and Miami treated it like the Super Bowl because it was for them. And, it's the Patriots are a rival, and they're not going anywhere this season. And they were fired up. Cutler who's like the most placid guy on the, ever to play in the NFL. Just sullen dude, walks around and he's excited on the field.
Celebrating to the sideline.
Like, what the heck is going on here? That you're not going to get that in New England this week.
Mm-hmm.
The Steelers, meanwhile, the Patriots did show some chinks on defense last week, and the Steelers are going to look at that, and they've got a guy who can exploit him in Antonio Brown. The Patriots are going to look at the Steelers' linebacker situation, which is fairly dire right now.
Sure.
And I think you're going to see a lot of them taking advantage of plays over the middle in the slot. I think you're going to get a wild one here. Yeah. This to me is good. This is a game that's going to live up to the hype. It's going to be a great football game. And I would not rule out something similar to what we just saw with Baltimore and Pittsburgh. Just this insane game where you get 70 points, unless weather conditions factor into things. Yep. And from what I can gather, it's not going to. That's the way I'd be looking at this game. And I know it's a public play, if you will, because this is going to be a heavily bet game, and heavily bet public games, they get a lot of money on the over. But I think this is going to be a blast to watch, and I think there's going to be a lot of points.
It's kind of funny, to your point, a couple of the notes I jotted down when I was handicapping this game. You got Pittsburgh's defense, as you mentioned, the huge void at linebacker, no Ryan Shazier. They were no match for Joe Flacco. Running back Alex Collins had a big game for the Baltimore Ravens against Pittsburgh. Andy Dalton kicked their butts 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
Don't forget about what Brett Hundley did to this Pittsburgh defense when they put 28 on the board 3 weeks ago. They've given up the Steelers, their defense. They've allowed a 7-to-1 touchdown to INT ratio the last 3 games, and the quarterbacks were Flacco, Dalton, and Hundley.
This guy's better than
touchdown
those guys.
to INT ratio. I've heard Brady might be a little bit better than these 3. And then the Patriots defense, Dave, last 5 games, even before Miami, they had the 4 wins against Denver, Oakland, Miami in the first meeting, and Buffalo. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers have a little bit more firepower than those 4 teams. I can't go against you, man. I think we're in agreement here that we might see another 35-31 type of game.
And from a fan standpoint, because obviously I'm going to watch this game on Sunday afternoon, I hope that's what it is. I mean, I want to see back and forth, up and down the field.
Sure.
Go down to the last possession and let's see who wins.
As long as my side covers when I get involved with this one.
Okay.
All right, good stuff. That'll take care of our preview for the NFL for Week 15. When we come back, best bets from Dave and I, and we'll wrap things up. We are WagerTalk.com.
Every Tuesday, WagerTalk.com offers a best bet selection from its hottest handicapper. It's a great way to introduce yourself to WagerTalk.com with a big best bet winner for just $2 on $2 Tuesday.
Welcome back to WagerTalk Podcast for Week 15 in the NFL. Once again, a reminder, Marco D'Angelo back in studio next week. Also, Matt Holt. We get Matt Holt back from CGT Sportsbooks. Full house. The band will be back together. Plenty of bowl action as we start the bowls this Saturday. Dave and I have bowl packages up. Everybody at WagerTalk.com. Dave, you've been red hot for, a month now at WagerTalk.com. Follow Dave on Twitter at Dave Cokin. Tell us what's going on at WagerTalk this week.
Yeah, I had a November 11th through the 14th. Was
Isn't it funny how you remember the bad days like they were yesterday? I do the same thing.
I had to go out and buy a second red pen because the first one ran out of ink. I mean, it was a really bad weekend. But since that time, it's been really good. Now, here's the thing. It's really good right now. It can end tomorrow. I mean, that's just the way, that's the nature of this business. If you're a handicapper or gambler, you know that there are going to be peaks and valleys. Right now it's a peak, and I hope it lasts for a long, long time because it's a lot more fun than the valleys. I've got several bowl games up. I've got 1 free, and I've got 5 that I've posted that you can buy, including my favorite bowl game, which I think is a situation. It's one of my favorite types of situations because from everything I gather, the side I'm playing against just doesn't give a damn at all about this game. They're not excited about it. The other team is, and that's in a relatively even game. That's a huge edge. Hockey, college basketball going really well. As far as the NFL is concerned this weekend, I'm probably going to have 2 or 3 good games. One that I'm considering, and I'll use it as the best bet here, and it could very well end up on my card on Sunday. I know it's a big favorite, but it's done for the Bengals. Now, last week, I played the Bears, and that turned out to be about as rocking chair as it gets. But it wasn't a play on the Bears. It was a play against the Cincinnati Bengals, who were coming off this monster effort against the Steelers. I almost said the Pirates. And, they blow a 17-0 lead. You just knew it was going to be a no-show. and it was. But I don't know why suddenly it's going to show this week.
Sure.
I think Jones or Lewis at this point could be a lame duck coach. They might finally have to make a change. It looks like a roster that's going to get turned over in the offseason. They've got some issues that we've seen in terms of team chemistry. I know they're getting a load of points from the Vikings, but boy, Minnesota's coming off their worst game in a while, a loss that dropped them out of the number one spot in the NFC, and they do want that home field. I mean, listen, the Super Bowl's in Minnesota. Mm-hmm. You think they're not geared up about getting the home field?
Heck yeah.
If they can get the number one seed, they have a chance to play all their games at home, including the Super Bowl. So I think it's a big game for the Vikings, and I don't know how much resistance the Bengals are going to offer them. You know, it's 10.5 points. It's not easy to lay big numbers, but one thing we know from the past couple of years is that down the stretch in the NFL, it hasn't been the worst idea in the world. Teams that have a lot to play for against teams that don't. Team that don't is giving up on some occasions. I think the Bengals are candidates to do that again, Scott, and I would recommend the favorite here, the Vikings minus the 10.5.
Had the Bears with you last week, too. That was one of 5 plays. We went into the weekend running cold, and I had our super nice
weekend.
Run.
Wow.
Yeah, Sunday was great in the NFL. Perfect 5-0 card. It's kind of fun when you get to 3-0 and you're like, all right, we got the win with all the early games. We got 2 late games, and then you watch them both come in. You go 5-0. So, and part of that, by the way, was my first 3-play package that we've had in a while. We go 3-0. We're now 44-17 and a couple of pushes
nice.
With plays inside the 3-packs. And I think we're going to have one for Sunday, a 3-pack. We definitely will have at least 3 plays up. We've got one already for Saturday night in the NFL. And again, our football play run, overall football plays, 103-71 with our last 174. So the cold stuff was happening on the hardwood, not the gridiron, and we snapped out of it over the weekend. Hopefully we'll continue to do so at WagerTalk.com. Right now, as we speak, I've got one Saturday bowl game up. We might add another. We've got the Saturday night NFL game. We're going to have, obviously, Sunday NFL. And also up right now, the biggest play we have at WagerTalk.com is a 5% play, 5% of the bankroll, and I've got one of those already posted. That's a playoff game for January 1st, and that's up and available right now. You can follow me at Scott Wins on Twitter, and my best bet for today's show, Dave, is going to be the Eagles minus 7.5 over the New York Giants. I am going to lay over 7. Here's the thing, man. We talked to Jason earlier. Jason told us this line would probably be 10.5, 11 if Carson Wentz was healthy. They're going to miss Wentz, no doubt about it, long term, but not in this first start, in my opinion. You've got Nick Foles. He gets his first team reps all week long. He knows what he's got to do as a member of the Eagles. He's been here before, albeit in it with a different coaching staff, but he understands what's going on here. And I look at this New York Giants squad, and I'm thinking, if this team, I know this is the divisional game, but I just thought, last week in a divisional game against Dallas, if they were going to step up and rally the troops, they would have done it last week after McAdoo got canned and after Eli Manning was named starter again, and they get beat 30-10.
They did early, and then they kind of get. I know we mentioned this earlier the week in the show, on the show, when Bryant caught the pass and just threw that guy off him like he was,
It's like changed everything.
The Giants quit.
Yep.
They did. They just quit.
And that's what scares me here. I think they're done. I think they've packed it in. So I like Philly with Nick Foles this week. It's rally the troops. And what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to develop that pass that Wentz likes to throw, play fakes, when all your blockers are setting up like run blockers, so you let the guys come through, and then he makes that quick play fake over the middle, maybe 7-8 yards downfield, but he leads the receiver, and they break him for 15, 20-yard, sometimes game-breaking pass catches, yards after the catch. And Foles, if you watch his game film, he just doesn't have that ability. He waits a split second too long on the play fakes, so the defenders who are let to come in get too close to him, and then his passes are generally behind the receiver coming across the middle. So what happens is you get a 6-yard gain or an incompletion, more often an incompletion. But I think that's not going to be a big part of the play mix this week, because if I'm reading about it constantly and handicappers and bettors are reading about it, the coaches are obviously talking about it. So I think they'll change things up a little bit, and I think they're catching a dead football team. I don't use dead in the NFL too much. I use it a lot in college football late in the regular season, but I think the Giants are going to be a dead team laying the 7.5 with the Eagles.
All right. But before we get out of here, I meant to do this at the top of the show, but we have a lot of cynicism in sports right now and every place else, but sometimes you got to take your hat off. And your favorite baseball team, the St. Louis Cardinals, did something that to me is just awesome. Absolutely awesome. They traded Stephen Piscotty. A lot of people might have said they traded Piscotty to the Oakland A's. And Piscotty's a useful guy. Mm-hmm. They didn't, he's not a star, but he's a good ball player. They didn't really get value in return. But the reason, it's clear why they made the trade. Piscotty's mother, who lives in the Bay Area, has been diagnosed with Lou Gehrig's disease. Sure. And they made the deal so that he can play baseball in the Bay Area. That is a class organization. So for those of you who have become really cynical in the sports scene, there's still some really class organizations out there, and the Cardinals showed they're one of them.
Yeah, it's funny because I grew up, and I'm still a Cardinal fan first, but I've also become an Angel fan living on the West Coast or in the Southwest for so long now, almost my entire adult life. So I'm a fan of the Cardinals. I'm a fan of the Angels, and I brought this up on Dari and Mel last Saturday morning because they wanted to talk about Stanton. They wanted to talk about where the odds were going to go with the Yankees acquiring Stanton, and I basically started it out by saying, you got to feel sorry for those of us who are Cardinal fans because they were teasing us. We came that close, it looked like, and Stanton didn't, he wanted to go to New York, and boy, they ripped me. Talk about cynical. They just let me have it. They're like, we don't feel sorry for you Cardinal fans. I'll never feel sorry for a Cardinal fan. They were laughing, having a good time with it, the whole thing, picking on me. But I like this. I'm glad you brought it up because I read that and I thought, what a class act by a class organization, and maybe they'll get some good karma from it coming up in the 2018 season.
I hope so. I'll be rooting for him, and I hope for Stephen Piscotty that works out as well as something like that can work out.
Yep, absolutely. He's Dave Cokin. I'm Scott Spreitzer. Mark Seidel at the controls. We'll be back next week. The whole gang, Marco D'Angelo, Matt Holt in studio. Until then, you know what to do. Put it in the win column. We'll talk to you next weekend.
And I bid you good night. Good night. Good night.
I'll catch you on the flip side.